Way to get your favorite.
A special good morning to one and all. Welcome to another edition of To The Point. Today being, of course, it's Wednesday. Almost said, it's Tuesday for some reason. Almost said that. It's Wednesday, the 5th day of July. Welcome to The Point. I'm your host, GT. And with me this morning, again, I have Mr. Sylvan standing in a bit of a different capacity this morning in reference to our usual Monday program. We will diverge into a different level of conversation this morning, but kind of semi-related to a point. Let me say good morning to our viewers. Those of you via GBN TV, I don't think I had shouted you all those yet, especially those of you via, of course, the various channels that you're viewing us via. Those are via the social media platforms, the Facebook, the YouTube channels. Good morning and welcome. It's always a bit of a mix-up, Sylvan, the day after a holiday.
Yeah,
the
mood and
the mood
and everything else. Yeah.
I must be grateful. Yesterday I got to rest a whole lot for some reason or the other. And that's something I don't do. I just decided, but the rain was one.
I want you to see that.
The rain, the early morning rain, and then through the course of the day, I was like, when I actually got out of bed, I said, it's like 11 o'clock. I was like, that was good. So I kind of feel a little bit energetic this morning for some reason. Get the rest. Not always you get that. Even though you roll into the weekend, somehow that rest don't come in on a weekend for some reason or the other. Anyway, Sylvan, nice to have you back with me this morning once again. This morning we want to touch on some on various topics this morning, and one of it going to be youth violence.
Yeah.
We want to spend some time talking about that. We indulge the public participation also. They may have some ideas, but we want to talk about that a whole lot. We see the vast amount of violence that have been happening lately with young people in Grenada, and it's getting into a worrisome nature. Yeah. Being adults ourselves, I'm not saying it's a first time thing for us in Grenada. It's not first time we know of that happening, but somehow on a weekly basis these days we hear of some incident happening.
Yeah.
And we probably need some part of guidance. Some intervention needs to take place in terms of getting the youngsters to think differently in terms of the way they approach conflict and how to resolve this thing without getting into violence.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know if you have an intro for me this morning before we begin.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I would give my intro, and again, thank you for yesterday's holiday. That was welcome CARICOM, and the idea of relaxation and so on. I did have a bit of that. That was good. And rain is part of my favorite thing in nature, so I used up the opportunity to do some things around the house, ensure the drains were cleared,
all right, and
that the water, it was moving in the right direction. So let me say to viewers, listeners, and followers at the GBN, don't get fed up or tired of me. I've been invited here this morning in a different capacity. I think today is supposed to be government's day, Wednesdays.
Yeah, Wednesday. We usually entertain the representative from the various government departments.
Absolutely. So I was requested on their behalf to speak on aspect of youth violence, and also I can touch on one of the areas of my expertise in terms of how the nation could be better prepared for what we are facing, meaning the hurricane season. So we are going to speak a little about that this morning.
All right.
And as you promised, youth violence, and some of the recent occurrences we would want to be able to touch on that very strongly and very focused this morning. And as you said, we will invite followers and listeners to chime in on this topic. And obviously, we don't like to just hold the discussion. We like to identify the issues, the problems, and we like to give directions for solutions and ideas as to how we can correct the problem.
All right.
And
go ahead.
No, sorry. Before you actually go into finding solutions, it is best to find root causes and what could have led or what is leading to some things that are actually happening. So that's some of the areas we are going to be focusing on. As we said, we want to touch on youth violence.
All right. I would like to ask you that in the intro. What do you think are the main causes of the amount of youth violence that we see going around these days? In your personal opinion, what do you think are the causes of it?
I want to speak on the causes. We're on point. Just as you said, it's very good to find where things are coming from so you can find a solution. But I think sometimes, from my teaching point of view, I like to follow a particular pattern. Like, if you say something, you must kind of give the meaning of it so that people understand it, and I like to bring it down to layman's expression and terms so you can understand. So when we speak of youth and we speak of violence, I like to try to define in a few parameters what a youth happen to be. Because sometimes people tend to believe that a 3-year, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, or a big person who might be young could be considered a youth. And there are persons who might be of a particular age as well and could consider themselves as a youth.
Exactly.
And there are some classifications.
Some folks go by the way they feel.
By the way they
I feel youthful.
I feel youthful. And they also kind of gloss it over by saying, I'm an old youth, technically. So, according to our local classification, and the age grouping for a youth is sometimes defined based on territory, based on national defines, and based on sometimes a universal definition. And so the United Nations do have a parameter within which you consider a person to be a youth. And I think it's somewhere between 15 and 25. For Grenada's, in Grenada's context, subject to anything else, it starts from 13 to 35. And in some cases, for various reasons, for specific reasons, a youth may be defined in a different category. Classification. I know, for instance, the Youth Emergency Action Committee, that's YAC, they have their own classification that says their youth would range from 16 to 35. And that is for specific reasons. And nationally, sometimes things are defined in those kind of a context. So we're speaking here based on how, from a ministerial, administrative, governmental perspective, the youth is a person between 13 and 35. So if you're within that age, you can be classified as a youth. And there is the young person, and then there's the adolescent, and there is a person, according to the law, that may be defined as 16 to 18, and person under 16 for sexual offenses, etc. For voting and driving circumstances, people are classified in that way. So we have defined youth. Now we want to break down violence. What really is violence? And some people might be battling within their own brain and head as to exactly what is violence.
Could you put violence in categories?
You can, of course. So I looked up a few of the definitions, and I came up with my own thing, and I have 3 breakdown I have here. It says it is behavior involving physical force intended to hurt, damage, or kill someone or something. Oh, wow. You understand this one, right? So it says behavior involving physical force intended to hurt, damage, or to kill someone or something. That is one classification one definition for violence. The other one says strength of emotion or an unpleasant or destructive natural force. Again, strength of emotion of an unpleasant or destructive natural force. And the final definition I have here says the unlawful exercise of physical force or intimidation by exhibition of such force.
Okay.
So there are a few key things here that really stand out.
I am picking up, especially in your second definition that you give.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like of a natural nature.
Yes.
So if I could think out of the box, we could think violence being how the wind blow, if you want to.
Well, the wind could also blow violently.
Right.
That's correct.
Right.
That's true. Okay, good. So we also try to, let's see a few words that comes out here. Physical, and if you recognize throughout all of the definitions that I gave, the word force is mentioned.
Yes, it's been
And
placed in there.
it is intended, it is negative, and the intent is to either kill or to cause some negative consequence.
All right.
Either to damage, to hurt, or to kill. And sometimes that exhibition of that emotion that comes out with an intention to cause some hurt, that is what is referred to as violence. So now we understand who's a youth, and now we understand a bit more clearly what is violence. Now I am going to go directly to your question as to what are the root causes. Now, violence or youth violence may stem from quite a number of reasons. And I want to go back to upbringing. I want to go back to community, and I want to go back to family. And so one may say that it takes a society to bring a child up, right?
Yes.
Another statement says you make a child, but you don't make their mind. And another thing that says, which is a guiding principle of the scripture, it says, train up a child in the way that it should grow, that when he is old, he will not depart from it. Does that set some fundamental parameters as to how a child or someone should grow?
It certainly do.
So I want to go back to, if you want something to be of a good result later on, there's also a statement that says what you put in is also what you will get out.
Yes.
The point I'm trying to make here is that the origin of a lot of things that we are seeing today stems from the upbringing of individuals, and it starts from as small or as early as in the womb.
Yeah.
Really?
It is true. Because there's someone said if a woman is pregnant and having a baby, the kind of music you play, the level of conversation that you have, could of course have that positive influence on that youngster when they're born and how they will continue to grow.
Absolutely. So what we are establishing here, GT, we are saying that in a lot of ways we have lost that fundamental touch of understanding that to bring up a child to be in a particular way, to become a particular person, it starts as early as from the time a woman gets impregnated, or she discovers that she's pregnant. And in some religious setting, I know of people who actually lay their hands on the tummy of or the belly of the female and pray on them and ask God to guide the developmental process of that zygote, that fetus that is on the inside, that will become a person later on. So the point we're making here is that if you want your child to be a good person in the future, as a parent, you must inculcate that kind of a outcome that you're looking. As a matter of fact, it is also said that one should be the change you want to see. So we're bringing that forward to say, try to create the human being that you would want to become the kind of a person in society. So the question you ask me as to where does youth violence emanate from, I want to say that it stems first and foremost from the family setting before it gets into the society, right? So we set some conditions as to where youth violence would really come from. So how can we channel that or change that down the road? Or where are other places that the origin or we can see the origin of youth violence? I spoke of the family, and I'm coming back now to the society, and then we're going to speak as to how we can change that from family setting, societal setting, and a country's setting, how we can influence those kind of changes. We have the society, and there is something else that in school and groupings we call peer pressure.
Yes.
Peer pressure comes from groupings, assemblies, and so on, associates, and it moves into the broader society in terms of what you generate and how you're going to deliver that. Now, how society reacts and behave with a particular situation is what eventually the country will be defined as. And when you break down a community, you break down a village, it takes you right back to the family.
Exactly.
So what are some of the things that we are seeing that societies are doing that generate those kind of anger that eventually generate violence? The music.
Yes.
Music has a strong influence, and music in itself has a spirit or has spirits with it.
I'm getting you.
You getting me, right?
I'm getting you.
Good.
I'm getting you.
From our own culture, if you ask us our own origin, as they say we are African descent,
Yeah.
but we mixed. We just like a Kalalu in some cases, because my McIntyre, the people we are mixed with the Scots, and then we have the Africans and so forth, and we have the Indians and everything else. But generally, we would say as our color coding and so forth, naturally we Africans.
We African.
And Africans.
Our chief descendants.
Our chief descendants, obviously, yes. And a lot of what is being done, a lot of messages and other things have been done through music. And so the kind of music that is generated, the lyrics that are generated in some of the songs that we have from our artists, it creates the environment for violent actions and reaction.
If I could chime in here just for a minute, do you think that music has always played a role in terms of violence?
Not necessarily.
We're talking of today's era. We understand. We know what our youngsters are exposed to today.
Yeah.
In terms of the whole culture has changed in terms of what we listen to.
Yes.
What we exposed to is compared to 40 years ago. If we want to say what we are accustomed to, our music basically is what we produce in Grenada.
Yeah.
Or maybe if someone comes from the US who we have visited, then they bring back our record or something, then you may hear that, or what the radio played back then. Now, the world is open to the internet and stuff, which now youngsters have access to anything that they want to listen to.
They do.
And it goes back to your initial statement in terms of parenting, what you allow them to listen to.
What you allow them to have access to.
Or have access to.
Yes.
And these days, some parents, because of they want that peace of mind, as they would say, they allow their children to listen to things. Hey, go in your room and on your tablet, go in your room on your phone, go in your room and watch your television. And those cultures are embedded into our youngsters, and then they start acting out and then the parents lose control.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
So that's why I come back to say how music has influenced the behavior of youngsters from back then to now.
So music in itself does have a strong influence, and it is not only negative. It has a lot of positive influence. So it depends on the type of music that one listens to, the type of music that one generates could generate a kind of feeling.
Yes.
There is romantic music, and if you want to feel a sense of romance, you play the sense
Something
of the music that gives you that kind of a feeling.
Yes.
There's this sense of how do you call it? The carnival atmosphere, the soca and the calypso brings you into the jab kind of a beat, jumpy stuff.
Yes.
That's what music will do.
Music could get you into a misbehaving mood.
And there are also music that will say to you, or will generate that kind of feeling of, get at them and don't take the feeling, don't take it so and be. And these kind of a thing generates the feeling, and it gives you the drive to want to do things outside of your normal self. So I have identified music as one of the strong influences that our youth are involved in and are exposed to that could generate some level of violence. And unless we are able to control and direct the kinds of music that our youth they are exposed to, we are going to continue to see some kinds of violence. And that is only one angle of it. So we are going to touch on other angles.
A key word you just mentioned there, control.
Control.
How possible is it in our era now to control that? Which is it left up to society or your parenting?
There are a few levels of control. The first one obviously is parenting at the home. So while we are not able to control what you do on the airwaves as GT, we would be able to control it as parents in our homes. So that's the first one. Media and the areas of information is also one of the factors that we can control. The GBN management and the other medium of television and radio, they have a right to also control. I'm sure you are not authorized, GT, to play any kind of music.
No, I mean, I have a negative nature. Wrong words that influence, a different state of mind. I mean, it's not only I'm not only authorized, but as I've been an individual myself, I would think of it. Well, is that appropriate for me to play?
Yes.
If you're thinking, sometimes you listen to certain people play music and you wonder, how is that individual thinking for themselves by me playing that particular song? Or you understand? Or sometimes I may listen to a radio station and you hear even the kind of language that they put out in terms of what they tell people while they speak. You understand? It's negative.
Yes.
You understand?
So GBN as a widely listened medium of information would understand that the GBN has a responsibility to our nation, and so it should be positive in its output. And so therefore, I am absolutely sure through the mission statements and otherwise, and statement of purpose and value, that the GBN would have those control parameters and stages and phases in the instruments that would guide as to what they deliver to the public. And then you as an individual obviously would have your own way. And I'm sure that if the GBN was ruthless in some ways and you had your own personal conviction as to doing certain things, you was not going to associate yourself.
Exactly. I mean, you have to have that embedded within you, and it stems back to your first your first statement. Parents.
Yes.
There were certain things I was not allowed to do as a youngster.
Absolutely.
And you grow with those qualities, even though you get at a particular age where you feel you could manage yourself differently. But somehow that it triggers back to, my mom never used to want me to do this, or my dad never used to want me to do this. But you become the adult. So sometimes you get to it and you want to do something, and that's what they think twice issue comes in, because you think about, the problems it could cause. Not only for you, but for others. And I think that's where the problem comes in with youngsters today. Somehow they don't think what they do has any, it bothers others more than bothers anybody or themselves. It doesn't even bother them in terms of what they do.
So what we create through our modernization and the electronic era, we have generated people who become selfish. They get hooked on the electronic atmosphere, and they stay within that atmosphere. And so if you are hooked on that instrument, it cuts you off from other people physically. So you're channeled into this virtual electronic mode. So while you might be interacting with others virtually, but your physical interaction with others is limited. And so that's where the selfish atmosphere and attitude sometimes drives in. So we don't think too much of the other person because we are in our own atmosphere. And you listen to you look at someone who drives, and we were speaking about music the other day. And a guy, why should you be driving your vehicle? Playing your music beyond a certain level that the entire community that you drive through is disturbed by it. Why not play it for your own listening enjoyment within the atmosphere or the environment or the control of you inside of the vehicle, that you alone can listen to it? So that non-caring, that selfish attitude is exhibited in a lot of different ways. I am playing my music, this is how I want it. I don't care about how anybody feel about it, who is disturbed about it. I love loud music, and I'm going to play loud music. I love music with obscene language in it. I'm going to play it regardless of who says it.
There's a twist to this also. Could you be listening? Someone could be listening their music in the confine of their own space, but it could tendency to feed your mind with negativeness, which you bring out because you've been listening. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this, and those are the kind of links that have been perpetrated to you, and you get that wrong influence, even though you're listening in your own space.
Yes.
There's so much to talk at this. We due for a break.
Overdue for a break.
Let's take that break, folks. So we come back, we talk some more. We're talking this morning youth violence, and I'm seeing how ways we could help to curb this in Grenada. We're coming right back, folks. Stay with us.
Yeah.
Discover a way to get your favorites.
More chances to multiply your Playway winnings by adding Multi-X to your regular Playway bets to win up to 5 times more. Imagine winning as much as $1,200 instead of $240 with a $10 Playway bet by simply adding Multi-X. Place your your Playway bets from $1 to $10 or in increments on your favorite Playway symbols or numbers. Then add the multi-X option at the same value to win 2 times, 3 times, 5 times more or free plays. With multi-X, you must bet the same amount wagered on your regular Playway bets for your winnings to be multiplied. Grenadians, value your dreams and win your way as much as 5 times more with multi-X added to Playway and watch your money grow. Must be 18 years or older to play. NLA, making your dreams come true.
New era, chaos and LED. Big get on us, Lord. Grenada are the best ones by far. Grenada are the best job in the whole wide world. Grenada are the best ones by far. Grenada are the best job in the whole wide world. Watch mass and watch Bacchanal, soca gone international. That's going around the globe, soca not just for carnival. Watch mass and watch Bacchanal, soca gone international. That's going around the globe.
Welcome back, listeners and viewers. It's to the point for today, Wednesday, the 5th day of July. With me this morning, Mr. Sylvan Intyre. Our focus this morning, mainly, even though we have some other topic lines that we would like to fall on, speak about, I should say. But we focusing on youth violence this morning. And Sylvan, welcome back once again. We ended our conversation in talking about some of the root causes that you think, causes violence. Yeah. And you spoke at length a wee bit in terms of the music influence part of it. Yes. Give us some other ideas and that which you think, where violence could be influenced, especially when it comes to youth. We don't understand music, and you spoke broadly about it. Although there's much more you could add in, but because of time, we could be here all morning talking about violence with you. Yeah. Give us some other, causes that you think besides music that's influencing youngsters into violence. Yeah.
So we also broke the bridge for effective communication. Yes. And that easy line of communicating with each other, and that easy line of communicating between parents and children. Once that is broken down, that in itself builds a wall. And when you have something that comes between, that provides some level of resistance, resistance builds force. And if you understood what I said in the definition of violence, it speaks of force. Now, when things are being pressured and not allowed to be released in a particular direction, it generates a different, and in most cases, a negative result or consequence may come through.
Communication, it could be broad-based. Yeah. It could be broad-based in terms of how it causes how violence could be projected onto another one. And that's where the conflict resolution comes in, and that's where the communication part of it. You could speak to somebody who wants to fight with you. Yes. And cease that from happening. You understand? Yes. And that way some individuals lack that. Yes. The way you talk to your son or daughter as a parent could have a influence on them not wanting to fight with somebody else, but prefer to go complain and have the matter resolved. So that's just one aspect of communication there. Yes. Yeah. And forgive me for taking this slant, but I grew up in a Christian environment from my early stage. My uncle was, I think he was a deacon in the church, the Catholic church, and so on. And we used to do Station of the Cross pretty regularly, and I had to do the catechism and so forth. Okay. And when I grew up, my mother we were the Pentecostal influence, and so I had this Christian upbringing. And so I want to interlude here that ensuring, according to the scripture, it says, children, obey your parents. So that's the line of communication. So when a parent communicates to a child, the child therefore should obey the parent. On the other end, the scripture also says, parent, do not provoke your children to anger. So the medium of communication here is a two-way. We have to understand that parents are not often the ultimate in terms of their own decisions. Parents are human beings, and they are subject to do things not within the orthodox manner. And children oftentimes
do not want to listen to their parents. And so the line of communication, some parents tend to bring over to their parents that regardless of what I say, I am right. And the parent who does not want to humble his or herself to the point where I may have not done this in the best of manner, and so an apology to a child is also very in place. Parents tend to believe because I'm the parent, I do not owe.
My word is final.
My word is final, and it does not happen so in good parenting. If that line of communication is established, what a parent could say, you know, listen, I had to have done this thing to you. I don't think that was appropriate at that time. My apology, I'm sorry. And then the child understands, okay, well, mommy or daddy could say that they're sorry for that because they did this. And so it breaks down that wall, and that child will realize, okay, mommy now has that human touch that could say to me that the decision that she made then was not the best. Now the child, on the other hand, is now building that respect more for the parent, that now I need to be able to respect you as well and listen to you when you speak. And so parents must try to generate the confidence in their children that they are leading them the right way. And there are things that you can't really take back. First impression, they say, is lasting.
It's less than one. I'm not a strong believer in that.
The initial impression that a child gets of the home bringing, it takes a long time. Sometimes it creates a scar forever as to how you can take this away from the child. So the bottom line is, parents must be the example that they want their child to be. If you don't want your child to be an alcoholic, don't involve yourself in the use of alcohol. If you don't want your child to be a smoker, don't be smoking to the child. And I'm speaking of these because those are negative influences, and they do have the way in generating the violence that we are speaking about. And so the foundation of the violence that we are seeing, it is leading us all the time as to how the family circle is generated and how strong or how weak it is. It goes into other areas. Now, the aspect of resolving issues, conflict resolution. Conflict resolution, the best place to start it, the best model of a society is within the family and is within the home. I had two boys. Initially, growing up, they were 2 years apart, and then I had the third one. And so boys, people would say they would have conflicts.
Yes.
How do you, as a father or a parent or a mother, teach your child how to resolve the conflict? They would hold on to something, and both will tend to believe that I'm the owner of it.
Yes.
How would you, as the peacemaker in between, as a parent, getting there to let them know that you don't have to fight or throw a fist or otherwise to resolve this, but you can decide how best both of us can benefit from that same thing that we want to fight for. So the aspect of resolving issues and conflict resolution can start in the home.
Yes.
So we have to be able to teach our children anger management. That process must leave from the home. It must go into the schools. So our teachers themselves must be the persons, because a lot of our children spend most of the time with the teachers.
So true.
They themselves must be able to be trained in the process of helping students deal with anger at the students and school levels. And when we enter into the broader society, into the workplaces, the whole aspect of conflict resolution must be taught. And it is not just a one-off statement. It is a process. We are all built differently as human beings. There are some people who are more aggressive than others based on where they come from and their own build. We are all different human beings, and so we react to things differently, and that has to be an understanding. And so we have to be able to find that middle ground of coexisting with each other. And if we understand, as I have said, if the world was built or made of all angels, there would be no need for police officers.
So true.
And a lot of people would have been out of jobs. Meaning that there will be differences. There will be good people and bad people. There will be people who have differences of opinion. But how you deal with it, how you are able to address it would make the difference. So if everyone understands that GT's view is different to Sylvan's view, and I respect GT's view, GT's expect to respect mine. And I don't have to exhibit force to make GT become Sylvan, or GT try to make Sylvan become AGT.
Just to understand, Sylvan, I don't have to be violent towards you.
You don't have to.
And I think that's what the problem. But you a key word then. I'm keep picking up keywords in terms of when you speak. Identifying.
Yes.
You understand? Yes. Identifying, when someone, is and it starts from the home once again.
Yes.
Parents can identify my son or daughter has a problem with anger.
Yes.
You as a parent, not all parents may be able to parent. Not all parents.
Not all people who have children will be able to parent.
They can. Not all parents good at parenting. That's a proper way to say.
Yes.
And and if a parent realize, well, I realize, GT is developing and puts a particular way about himself where he's becoming violent for some reason or the other. And you maybe as a parent you try to speak to him or her, and you realize, well, I don't think I have that strong will. Not everybody's the same, and these days and times, I have a 4-year-old whose vocabulary is way over mine sometimes. Mm-hmm. You understand?
Yeah, they do.
And so not all the time a parent may be able to seek that. She probably can. Him or her parent can probably identify my son or daughter has that anger, and in terms of managing. And I think that's where the assistance of the community could probably come.
Yes.
Because back then that's where it used to be.
Yes.
They would talk to a neighbor and say, talk to Jack for me, talk to Peter for me, because I find he's being a little bit rude up, and I am speaking to him, but he's not absorbing what I say. You understand?
Right.
And probably that assistance could probably help in terms of identifying the problem, and speaking to someone can help you curb the problem a wee bit. Instead of letting it drag out where he's now bringing it out to society where you could not have where you could have tried to nip it in the butt at an early stage within the household.
Absolutely. So after we would entertain maybe 2 callers shortly. What I will do, GT, before we conclude the segment on youth violence, we would give a few ideas as to how the whole aspect of handling violence and dealing with anger management issues, how to deal with it, and how we can prevent.
Let's take a break, Sylvan. We come back after the break. We probably entertain some calls, and we get into that bit of the conversation. Because I know the phones are going. Lots of folks are trying to chime in and since we got in, let's take that break. We're coming right back. Stay with us, folks. It's To The Point.
Something big is coming. It's that time of the year again when the air fills with rhythm, excitement, and anticipation. It's time for the Soca Monarch Prelims. 4 unforgettable nights, 4 electrifying venues, soca music, pulsating rhythms, and performances that will leave you breathless. July 6th and 7th, we're kickstarting at Lassager St. David, and then we're turning up the heat. July 8th, we move to Cuthbert Peters Park, St. John, and for the grand finale, July 9th, we'll be shaking the ground at Boss Yard St. Patrick. Can you feel the excitement? Every night starts at 7 p.m. sharp. Be there and experience the electrifying energy of soca. And here's the best part. All this for an admission fee of just $15. There's no excuse to miss this. So mark your calendars and brace yourself for a soca experience like no other. The Soca Monarch Prelims. It's not just an event. It's an unforgettable experience. Spice Mass, The Evolution. We'll see you there.
At the NIS, our team proudly works to support the evolving needs of Grenadians. We have made some changes to our operations and want to keep you informed. Firstly, we are happy to introduce the new unemployment benefit. This benefit will provide an insured person with 50% of his or her former income in the case of sudden unemployment. To support this benefit and other benefits we offer, it was necessary to increase the contribution rate. The contribution rate will increase gradually each year until it reaches 16% in 2031. As always, the contribution will be split between you and your employer. The pensionable age will also increase from 60 to 65 years. This increase will also be gradually reaching age 65 in 2029. Pensioners will continue to be eligible for a pension from age 60, but will receive a reduced payment. The NIS recognizes that the prices of basic customer goods are increasing globally. Therefore, we are happy to also increase the weekly minimum pension payment by 25%. Finally, we have adjusted our survivor's benefit payment to a percentage of the age pension minimum. widows, widowers, and dependent parents will receive 100% or $58 weekly, while children will receive 50% or $29 weekly of the deceased's pension. We are here to make the transition to these new changes as clear and simple as possible. If you have any questions on how these changes impact you and your family, please contact our new informational hotline at 440-6647 or visit www.nisgrenada.org. Thank you for allowing us to be your Social Security provider.
Welcome back to. Within this segment, we're going to probably take a couple of calls, and get the views of the listeners and viewers out there as we talk to youth violence, and maybe they could probably give us some insight in terms of how they think are some of the root causes. They may have a varying opinion to us.
Yes.
Maybe would it be pertinent to what they say or not? But let's.
And in the interest of time, we'd advise them to be very short and
please.
to be
we are a bit strapped for time already,
yes.
So be precise in terms of your comment and as we move forward. Yeah. Let's go to our very first caller. Good morning.
Gentlemen, I think that's the problem. When we attempt to address this issue, we don't really give enough time for people to evolve their thinking. So we really shoot ourselves in the foot. Nonetheless, there's a lot of factors. And when we say that youth violence, we sometimes making a mistake, because we have a violent society. Right now, we have violent society. Our people, the way we speak to each other, there's violence in us. Then, of course, Mr. McIntyre is right in terms of there's a genesis of that. Part of the problem with violence in Grenada had its genesis in '83. And people might say even before that. But a lot of it, post-invasion, a lot of things was done to ensure that this society becomes dysfunctional over time. And this is what we have. First of all, institutions and organizations that was there was dismantled. And you see a similar pattern in any country where the U.S. invaded, whether it's in Iraq and so on. So there's no peace. And then the way we attempt to address these issues is very flawed, because we then run to heaven and call on heaven rather than dealing with the problem ourselves. First of all, and I'll honor your request, we don't really encourage people to be honest. We don't speak truth to one another. That's one. Secondly, we make assumptions about the other person, and then we pass judgment. We take things personally, and we never encourage our people to see the other side. The scripture tells us do not judge, but we keep judging people all the time, and that's one of the bases of conflict. So I know I could continue, but let us have a greater conversation. I know we are limited, but let us have, because it's bigger, because there's an element right now that we have not taken into consideration, the issue of diet that are affecting the young people, diet, the sugar and all the things that are affecting their behavior. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Great points there from the caller, and he did, especially that part of it. That's very important.
Yes,
also.
Absolutely.
Let's take another call. Caller, good morning. You're welcome. Welcome to the point.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, gentlemen. And Mr. McIntyre, he cannot say nothing more. All we have to do is follow. Because we lost this thing from the parents, where the parents controlling, and it's gone outside. But in the early days, the parents will control. If they're not doing something wrong, the neighbor and the people on the street could have control, but they lost that. So many problems, and they don't want to control the children. The people like godfather, neighbors, they cannot tell their children anything to correct them. It's a problem. You can't do it in schools. So now, therefore, this thing comes like being the part of the government responsibility to make sure that they put rules in place, business places and schools, and they have to follow it. Secondly, as he talk about the thing with the children when they're young and the mother is pregnant. We've been knowing that since in the 50s and 60s, and that is a true thing. According to the stage of a woman's pregnancy, there's certain things she's supposed to keep away from. I have a relative that had a boyfriend with when she was pregnant, really ill-treat her very bad, and she bleeding and all sort of thing. When that boy come, he born and he grow. He's as violent as what the father used to do. He's even spitting in her hand. If you call a girl spitting, and he want to spit in her hand and box her. I could remember in the early days, there's a lady that, only stayed out pregnant. You see the black and white serpent? She went to look at it and make this. When her child born, she have all the tactiness and the skin of the child. Everything is in the genes. It grow in the genes. It work with the moon. Mr. McIntyre is a very knowledgeable person, and I know we can learn a lot for him. But right now, a lot of the things, even the Calypsonians that he talk about, the music is in total control. I have a place, and I said, look, they brought a Calypsonian there to sing for some children. The children were all out in the clay. The gentleman go in a building where there's chairs and tables and put his foot on a chair and tell him to come in and let's go, get on, just jump, do what you. How can you take them out from a clear place, bring them in a room where there's chairs and tables to get on? Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you, caller.
Thank you so much.
Sylvan, the caller did make a lot of points, but there's a point that I always want to make. Yes. Is it necessary to have both parents in the family to bring up a child in the right way?
Oh, you put me on a real pressure day, GT, man, for both parents. But unfortunately, there are a lot of households with single parents. Mm-hmm. And it seems as though the man seems to be able to get away quite easier than the female, because she carries the fetus, the child, for 9 months, and then she gives birth. So she's stuck with that child. But to answer you directly, it really is an ideal situation for a father and a mother to grow a child.
Yes.
The father, in most cases, the male figure represents discipline fundamentally, it seems. Mm-hmm. But females who are left with the responsibility of growing a child must not relinquish that responsibility to understand that you have equal responsibility to ensure that your child is disciplined and grow in the way that that child should grow. So if a man is not in the home, it doesn't mean that a child has to become delinquent, a child has to become violent. Each parent has equal responsibility. And if the father is not there or the mother isn't there, it means that the person who is left must double up on the responsibility to ensure that that child grows the way he really should grow.
All right. And I agree with you. Yeah, both parents is needed, but doesn't mean a child will grow differently if a father is not around. And if it's also could be the other way around. There are females who will get out of the family and leave the father alone with the children. So it will be best to have both parents, but I think it would not make an ideal difference, in my personal opinion, if a mother alone brings up a son or daughter. And I don't think they could be violent because, well, my mother alone brought me up, so that's why I am the way I am. Or, some folks would say, you must have that father figure around all the time. I just have a different perception about it.
I respect your perception, but it also goes back into the education sector where the people are also saying that most of our teachers are females, and that is leading to a breakdown in school. That is a debatable situation. We don't know. But I went to a primary school where the St. Matthew's RC, where the principal, teacher Carmen, that was a female.
Yes.
And she had a leather belt, a leather strap. And the entire school had respect for that leather belt that was delivered or was going to be administered by a female principal. So in a lot of cases, it's not just whether it is the gender. I think it has to be how assertive that individual is in ensuring that discipline is delivered.
All right, let's take a call. Caller, good morning and welcome.
Hi, good morning, GT, and good morning, Mr. McIntyre. I agree with Mr. McIntyre that the ideal is for a home, a unit family with both parents. There are cases where a single parent can raise a child, but it depends on the circumstances. A lot of what happens in a single parent home, especially where there is a female, and if there are many children, and there is no support from the father, there is this element of frustration. And people ignore that. This poor woman is frustrated. She has to go out there and toil, find the food, find everything, pay the rent with no support. So in many cases, she doesn't have the time and the composure to deal with the children and the problems. So sometimes she may abuse them. She may say things that she didn't mean to say, not because she's a bad person. Not that in ideal conditions she couldn't be an ideal mother. But her circumstances are such that when the child comes up with something, she's angry. She doesn't know what answers to give them. And that's why a lot of children coming from those conditions come into the society with a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, and it's not, don't be ashamed to say it comes from home. And homes where persons or people who should have shouldered their responsibility failed to do it. A child goes into the school system, in many cases, after 4 or 5 years. By the time the child gets it, that child should be well-rounded. Humans are the only animate beings that are born as helpless, you know. You know, most animals, they give birth and they never see the offspring. Some of them put an egg down and it fertilizes, it germinates for itself. Some give birth and they walk away. But the human is helpless, and that's for a reason. So if you don't teach them that they can speak, they won't speak. If you don't show them that they can stand, they won't stand. They'll creep on all fours. And if you don't show them how to eat, they won't eat properly. Right? And it's for a reason that we should have enough time to mold and fashion the child and train and discipline them. But in many cases, we have a situation where the person who is left there don't have the time or the wherewithal or the means to do that. And let's not be afraid to say that and say, oh, we could be good. One parent can raise a child. It's not supposed to be. It's not the ideal. And it is the cause of a lot of the anger and frustration we see in our society today from kids who brought up in homes like this. That's my contribution.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you for your contribution. Mr. Baker, I have a question here from someone. Seems to really want you to answer it. That's on our Facebook page, and he's saying, and let me see if I can get this. It's a bit lengthy. I will try to get it through really quickly. And he's saying, I think we have to stop making excuses and bring back the program that the revolution, where young people were involved in self and community services and development. During the revolution, there was the NYO Pioneers, the NYO Students Council in schools, library, self-help on weekends, plus village competitions like netball, volleyball, basketball, cricket, etc. Do the youth was more? Let me get that right. The youth was more occupied, and the question is, Mr. McIntyre, do you think that having these past programs will make a difference as the revolution did?
There's a simple answer to that. Is yes.
Yes.
I could say definitely yes. But the two callers made reference to the revolution. Mm-hmm. One made reference to the 1983 period, the intervention, invasion, rescue mission, as to some aspect of discipline breakdown. And someone may have also made reference to the 1979 to 1983 period. While there were many programs involving the youth and there were a lot of youth activities, there is still the argument as to whether or not there was also a breakdown in discipline in family home bringing when youngsters were so exposed to weapons.
Yes.
I personally know of families that were severely impacted by the infiltration of weapons into the homes. There were youngsters who brought weapons home, and so parents were actually scared. And it happened quite a bit. There were, you had...
So the reaction, the feeling...
You had the pioneers, you had the militia, you had the permanent battalions and so forth, and they were all youngsters. And so the argument is, and I've heard a number of people speak about it, family persons said, they were literally scared of the youngsters who were exposed to all of these weapons that they brought into the homes. So they felt a sense of intimidation, that if they corrected their children in a particular way, that the weapons were going to be used on them. Okay. And so they could not have corrected their children to the extent because of that fear. And these children too grew up not having that kind of a parental influence, and they too computer-generated children. So the argument comes across on either side as to whether or not that period in itself led to a breakdown where there was the distance between the parent and the child because of fear that something different may have happened because of the exposure to weapons and so forth.
Okay, let's entertain another caller. Caller, good morning and welcome.
Yes, sir. Sorry to come back, but I said, well, from talk, you all explaining, but what I want to say, even the people are saying, even the 50s and 60s, all the things that the revolution, maybe most and a lot of them, they introduced, was there in these early days. But I think the revolution did it more on a wider scale. But it was there before because we grew up in that kind of area. Then talking about the parentage of the man and the woman, this thing is even from in the Bible. The woman take 9 months to bring before you're able to bring this child. Pain and thing to carry that child. So when to correct that child, according to what it is, there's been a problem. If you notice, most parents where their mother and the father gone to work, the children doing something home, but you're hearing the mother saying, when your father come, waiting for him, let your father beat you. He going to beat you for that. All right, so the child continue doing that thing. So why that mother is not holding that child and correct that child with beating him or whatever, is because of the pain she carries. She don't want to inflict anything on that child. So she's prefer to that's why the parents are like that, the women, they prefer to let them do it than correct them or put any pressure on them. And it is illustrated in the Bible. Remember with the woman with the child, the one child and the two women with the sword? So that is all where it stems from too. So it's the woman is always the man always want to put correction and pressure and right to get the child going, but that woman, because she take 9 months to carry that child, is that pain for her to hit them. Thank you.
So, GT, I want to really jump in though. Is that the caller's own finding, or is that a scientific finding or discovery that's what it is? Or
I think that's the caller's own analogy in between the.
In his analogy, his own analogy of what it is?
I mean, yes, he speaks something biblical part of it,
yes.
But a lot of it seems to be his own way of thinking. You know? Well, you need your father needs to be there to do this. Always seemed, it's a societal thing back then.
Transfer the responsibility of discipline from the female to the male.
To the father. When your father come home, he go beat you.
That's correct. They transfer that. But I've never really analyzed it in that way in terms of the pain that the mother feels that she don't want to inflict that. I don't think so. Women express it.
If your mom wants to beat you, she can beat you.
Shoot, go some licks on you. I don't know. Well,
good morning, welcome. I guess that caller was not patient enough to remain there. But you know, we had to talk about, let's take this caller when we come back. I want us to speak about some of the other root causes of violence before we wrap up.
Okay.
We want to speak on. Let's take another call, which will be a final one in this segment, and then we continue. Caller, good morning, welcome.
Yes, like the previous caller, just calling back, just to challenge you people. In terms of, there was violence on both periods, but we have to ask ourselves, is the violence we getting now, has it too much to do with what happened before 83? I mean, there's a lot of things that we have to put in context. For instance, when you talk about the music before was much more sanitized because it was more for a purpose. Now, music is for the market, and anything goes on the market. Anything that sells. These are issues we really need to take care of. For years, I've been clamoring for us to take note that we are creating love until and move on. If anybody listen to me, they hear me because seeing it as one who's trained in public in our conflict resolution and things, I can see children who get in serious conflict. I can see adults. I mean, it's going to be a violent society, and unless we really come to terms and try to address that, rather than doing superficial things, we will continue and things would explode. Over and over. Thanks.
Thank you, caller. Thank you. So I can tell before we go into another caller, you had planned to talk about some of the things that you think can be done.
Yeah.
Especially to curb the violence that we've seen today, especially among youngsters.
Yes. So before I actually answer that, I just want to say I would wish to see a forum or fora where we would have an expansion of the issues on youth violence and violence in general. I think Grenada requires this at this stage, where we can have town hall meetings, town hall sessions, where people would come out and express themselves in terms of the violence that they're experiencing within the society, within the communities, and how they think we as a nation can address it. The government does have a lead role to play in that, but society, we do have an equal part to play in ensuring that the aspect of youth violence, it's really amplified, it's brought before the fore, and the issues and the angles of addressing them, the solutions to some of them, we would wish to see it come out in a broader way. So a 1 hour program in the morning to the point is definitely insufficient for us to address the issues. We spoke of some of the causes of youth violence and violence in general, but I think it would be remiss if we did not actually speak of how we can address it. I think we need more mentors in our societies. We need people who will be willing to commit their time and the effort going into one-on-one engagements to families to ensure that we have this one-on-one engagement in proper parenting and family, how they can be able to overcome the issues. There are quite a number of things that generates anger and violence subsequently. The whole issue of poverty and other things, well, it creates that kind of a it generates that kind of energy that can sometimes cause people to react violently to others because they don't have something.
Yeah, I don't have what you have.
They don't have what they have, so they would go out to kind of get it. So in general, parents should try to encourage their children, teach their children to be consistent and to be what you would say, not consistent is not the right word, but to be able to appreciate what is available at the time and to not envy what others may have. That is something that we don't see very much in society. People tend to try to go out to achieve what the others may have, despite how they may have gotten it themselves.
Lead to them becoming violent.
Yeah, that again. The principle of turning away from situation. If you walk away from a situation, it doesn't make you less of a person. It doesn't make you less powered or otherwise. It proves more positive that you are a man when you walk away from a situation. There is something that we learned growing up. Count to 10 before you act once. And so that issue of reacting to somebody before you do something, think about what the consequences are likely to be. Our prison population is one of the things I wanted to speak about in terms of the number of youngsters between the ages of 13 and 35 who are up there. The youth population, I don't have the exact percentage. I hope we can get that one of these days, but it's quite an alarming rate where young persons are making themselves susceptible to violent acts. They're succumbing to issues that they should actually try to overcome, and they're yielding to that kind of issues, and eventually they get themselves entangled with the law. So what I'm saying here generally, think before you act. Take a deep breath before you respond. Remember what the consequences are likely to be of your action, and decisions are not best made when you are heated or when you are angry. Take some time to think of what your course of actions are likely to be before making one of those. And it is always good to go back to your fundamentals. Speak to your parents, those who brought you up into the right principles and the right home setting. And fundamentally, whisper a word of prayer in the morning and before you go to bed. It helps you to be calm. It helps you to make better decisions. It helps you to be conscious of a being that would have created you and something and some being that wants you to do right and to do the right thing all the time.
Mr. McIntyre, I want to thank you. We had that particular time of the morning, but I wish programming of this week could have extended this all morning. This could be a conversation all morning.
Yes.
Taking the calls from individuals and speaking more about this, because we need to see some kind of resolution in Grenada.
Yes.
It's one too many. You understand? In terms of every week we're hearing of an issue, and it's becoming a little bit overbearing. And I certainly hope the authorities could look into this and come up with some way of distracting youngsters in a way that it's pertaining to one of the things. Maybe to get themselves involved in other things than just being violent could certainly help and move forward. Because when the younger ones who are seeing these violence happening from day to day, they want to adapt.
Yes.
And if you look at it, a lot of them is just basically adopting what they see and hearing from, especially from the music, and what they've seen others do within their household or within their community as a whole also.
Yes.
So McIntyre, thanks once again.
You're very welcome, sir.
Thanks once again. And I guess I will have to say see you next week this time. I think I'll see you the other day for the week again. I'm hopeful I'm going to see you any other time for this week again. Until next week. Anyway, folks, that's what we're going to have to take a wrap. I know the phones are going, but we are not able to accommodate any more calls. That's what we're going to have to wrap to the point. We're already gone 5 minutes after the hour. Thanks to all who participated some way or the other, whether it's by your phone calls, you viewed, you listened, you made a comment via our Facebook page or YouTube channel. Thank you so much. Join us again for another edition of To The Point. Have yourself a wonderful day, folks. That's what we say. Bless and have a good one. We say bye.